Hi, I'm Ethan. We're going to talk about how to get an apartment if you've never gotten an apartment before. What some of these things mean, what to look out for, and how we can help you understand these things better so you should get an apartment or not. Maybe just because you qualified and were approved doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. Check it out. Let's get into it and subscribe. Would you please subscribe, like the video? It really helps us out, helps us to keep making more content like this that are going to help not just for apartments, but for other things in life in general. Okay. So you've never gotten an apartment before. Maybe you're still living at home with parents. Maybe you've been in a house that you have moved into a long time ago and that was done back in another process, but now you're going out into the apartment world. What are they going to ask for? Maybe you're getting a place to share with a roommate, establish some kind of independence, but also co-living with somebody else. Let's talk about application process. First, how do you qualify and then get approved for an apartment? There are three big factors that are going to decide whether or not you're approved for an apartment: proof of income, credit report, and your rental history. Let's get into first the proof of income. When I say qualify or approve, proof of income is going to help you qualify for the apartment. It doesn't mean you're approved for the apartment. So the first thing you're going into is like, do I qualify for this? Let's explain each of these big things one at a time. Let's talk about proof of income, credit report, and rental history. First one is proof of income. First, you have to understand why I say proof of income, because it's not just income in general, how much money you make. They need to know that you have proof of documented income. Now, I've rented apartments to people before when they don't have an income, so they have to prove that they have enough savings, enough total money that they own in an account somewhere that can cover the entire term of the rental lease. For example, if they had rental unit that they wanted that was $1,000 and they don't have an income at all, the apartment company might say, we need to see 3 times that for the entire lease. So we have to see if you have 3 times that for the entire lease. So the $12,000 for 1 year at the apartment is $1,000, be 12 months, that's $12,000. They would need to see that you have $36,000 sitting in an account. But that's not the most common. The most common by far is show us your pay stubs. How much do you get at work? And how much you can prove, whether it's pay stubs or another way. You have to get comfortable also sharing this information with the people at the person, staff member, or the landlord, because they ask this from everyone. It's a requirement. So just get used to it. Yeah, here are my pay stubs. This is about how much I qualify. Those qualification guidelines, they're required to be stated somewhere in the office or on the application, available to everyone that are the same. So whether this person comes in, it's the same. If their requirement is that you need to show 2.5 times the rent amount or 3 times the rent amount, it's the same for everyone. So just get used to answering that question or writing it down on the application. What's your income? Write it down on the application. You're going to be doing that time and time again for every application you fill out. Now, the most typical way to show proof of income is pay stubs. They will usually request about 30 days consecutive proof of income, and they have to stick to that 30 days. If you give them like 4 weeks, they might say, hey, that's only 28 days. They're pretty much sticklers for that. You have to get used to this type of process being a stickler type, very strict process. Just get used to that. Those pay stubs will vary sometimes depending on your job. They're going to be taking the average of that 30-day period. For example, if you sometimes make $1,000 a week, sometimes $500 a week, those might be averaged together to, looks like $750 a week. So that's what they would end up putting on the application, or stretching that out to the month period. They will take your total and enter that as your proof of income for the 30-day period. And they will say, okay, is that 3 times the amount of rent, or is it over 3 times the amount of rent, or 2.5, whatever the requirement is. Now, sometimes you'll be able to show, instead of pay stubs, a job offer letter if you're accepting a new job from your HR department. Sometimes you can just ask your HR or manager for a letter that says where you work, when you started, and what your pay is. That might be accepted. Sometimes it's a full year, depending on the source of your income. They might say, all right, well, you need to show a full year of this income. It's more annoying to do that, but it sometimes can be done if you have to. And that's what we're working towards. How can you be inventive and find one of the ways to satisfy that qualification requirement? They'll usually work with you on that, and it'll state on the application what they might be able to accept. The full year would be if somebody might be an independent contractor, they don't have a job, they work for themselves, a rideshare driver, somebody that does the gig economy or has their own company. This is where a full year or bank statements showing deposits, the source of that deposit and the frequency of that deposit into your account. I've even seen some apartment companies say that if you show your tax returns, then we can establish your income that way. After the income, what they can accept, it'll usually be stated, like I said, in the office. One of the pages on the application, it's going to say what the requirement is. 2.5 times is common, 3 times is common. So how much do you need to prove is that 2.5, 3 times? What's the minimum proof of income requirement? And by the way, the management is like legally required to have the same like qualification requirements for everyone. So don't worry about saying, you know, if you think you make so much income that they're going to charge a higher rent or that they're going to look down on you or anything like that for making that like just the requirement. They have to treat everybody the same. It's a requirement. And let's see, it's important to give that a thought because you don't want to go in there thinking like, I'm going to be treated differently, so I better like, it's not like they're wheeling and dealing. The housing laws are very strict. What they can do has to be done the same for everyone. You have that on your side. Sometimes it feels kind of annoying because they have to treat you the same way as they treat everybody when they can't just like be your friend and work with you. Like, look, we gotta stick with these requirements. Boom. It's like that. So let's get into the very next thing after proof of income. That is the required amount that they need to see, obviously. The other thing that they're going to need to see is, and this is about life in general, is your credit report. Now, credit is something that if you haven't started working on it yet, haven't given somebody a credit report yet, or they're going to run your credit and then they will tell you if, you know, you can ask what the score was of your credit report. If it is no credit, they might charge you a security deposit and say, hey, there was no credit on your credit report. Either you're denied or we'll charge you a security deposit so that you can be approved. Security deposits are all over the map. It used to be really common where I was managing apartments in Los Angeles to have a full month as the security deposit. Sometimes it's a month and a half. In other states, other towns, it might be only $100 security deposit, $500 security deposit. Those things they might fluctuate. Remember, this is money you're getting back, but if you have no credit, instead of like a 700 good credit score, they might say your requirement for this is approved if you pay a slightly larger deposit. Whether that's half of a month's rent, or the last apartment I rented was, instead of like no security deposit, it was like $100 security deposit, something like that. If you don't know a whole lot about the credit score, it's really important. So if you're thinking about getting an apartment right now, or if you do go out and you get denied for an apartment because your credit score was too low, I have been there, absolutely been there, and I encourage you to get on something like Credit Karma and start paying attention to what that is. Because your credit score, especially if you're like just getting started in the world, just got out of high school, just got out of college, something like that, it may not have been like talked about a lot in your high school or in your college or in your circle of friends, but damn, that is a huge issue that is really going to put you in a great position if you start understanding how the credit reporting bureaus work. Buy something on credit, even if it's like a little store credit card, or when you fill out some application that says, hey, you can pay in monthly installments for this. They're reporting everything about that to the credit bureau, and that is making this permanent record that's going to follow you everywhere. That is one thing that, like, discrimination is highly not allowed in any way, and it's highly frowned upon. With your proof of income, things like that, they cannot discriminate against you. But the credit score, they can discriminate all day long until the cows come home about that. And that's not just apartments. That's like if you wanted to buy a car, but you have a really low credit score. They're gonna say like, yeah, you're approved, but guess what? Your interest rate because of this low credit score is way higher than the person who has a great credit score. They're not gonna be paying that much interest. You are. and you're in control of that. But if you don't know what's going on, get on that Credit Karma, something like that, where it allows you to track and see what different companies are reporting to the credit report bureaus about you. It's huge. So that brings me back to the credit score. So we had the proof of income, the credit score. That's usually done when you submit your application and pay what could be between $25 application fee, $75 application fee. Then they will run that off in their little computer program and it'll say, hey, it came back with your credit score. That's been approved. You can get into what a good score is, like 690, 700 and above is maybe fair to good. 720 is good. 740 is like great, things like that. But you start off typically when you turn 18. If you don't have any accounts, it's going to be like a no credit, which is not bad. But like I said, security deposit may be involved then. Now, after the credit score, the third thing I mentioned was rental history. The rental history is something where you have to say, what are the last places you've lived for the last 3 years? Now, you might have different addresses that you have been at for college or while you're in high school. You're still going to write those down there. They may have to contact, if you had a rental before, they may have to contact that place. They'll fax them something or email something just to say, hey, did this person live there? And if so, is there any reason you would not rent to them again? This is so big. If you are getting an apartment or about to get an apartment, you want to figure out how they can verify that and see if there are problems that your previous landlord might say, like they wouldn't rent to you again. That could be a big issue. So take care of that relationship where you're living. Make sure that any place you are living knows they may be contacted because you're looking for another place. And if there's any reason they wouldn't rent to you again, try to square that away. Sometimes you can get in front of that and say, is there any reason you wouldn't rent to me again? And how can we rectify that situation? So those are the three big things about how you can qualify to be approved for an apartment. Your proof of income, your credit history / credit report, and your rental history, which they will usually email or fax. Are they still faxing? I've faxed so many of those in my life. Hey, we're sending this off to your previous landlord, waiting until we get it back. Usually they just has a big checklist. Would you rent to this person again? Is there any reason you wouldn't? Were they pay their rent on time? Things like that, yes or no questions. And you will have to, when you apply for an apartment, have to say, yes, I understand you will be contacting the landlord or the manager of where I used to live. Once we get all those things, those three big items as part of the application to the landlord that you're interested in an apartment with, the management company, whatever it is, it can take them anywhere between, a day or a week or however long it takes you to get all what they need in to run the application. And they're going to give you a score back. Hopefully, if you don't qualify based on like a verbal discussion before you even pay the application fee, if you don't have the proof of income and you can't come to an agreement with what proof they can accept, that would be like you don't qualify. You don't qualify because I don't have income that I can show, that I can document, like documented income I can show. If you do, it means you do qualify to have your application run. When it's run, you could either be approved or denied. Now, it's great news to be approved. And I've heard, like, especially with first-time renters or younger folks, that when they hear, oh my God, my application is approved, they're like, I've made it. This management company, this apartment, the world has just established that I'm all good, that I should be renting an apartment. However, that's not saying that like, hey, everything's gonna be good, this is gonna be fine. That doesn't take into account the expenses you already have, the unexpected occurrences that might come up throughout the year. I just wanna let you know that I've seen people rent an apartment. They think being approved means all is well. If they were just over the minimum required income, they have other expenses, if things happen in life, all of a sudden they find themselves like, dang, I don't have enough money for rent next month. Anytime during that lease, or it stresses them out too much. And that's where I would say to strongly consider approved for an apartment. Does that mean I should rent the apartment? Not always. So use your best judgment. And one thing I would encourage you to think about is if you do have a place, like I've talked to people that said, yeah, I'm living with my parent or a relative right now, and it's really cheap, but I've been there, 2 months, a year even, and I just want to get my own place. Yes, we all want our own place. We all want independence to do our own thing. However, if you can, it's worth it to think about, can I capitalize on this a little longer to give myself a little financial padding? Take care of some of these items. Make sure you get on the Credit Karma or something like that. Start looking at the accounts that you do have. Use that time with a cheaper rent situation to give yourself some financial padding. Save up some money. Get your credit report, under control, or just know what it is so that you know what your position is when you go to get your apartment. So think about staying there for a while. But if you do want to jump on that apartment, make your situation go right now. Get that approval. That's also very exciting. Best of luck with that. And if you do get the apartment, watch our other videos about doing the apartment move-in inspection. There's one about how to deal with neighbors who are noisy. That's a kind of controversial video, actually. Anyway, subscribe to the channel, comment, let us know if there's any other questions that you have. Sometimes people will see your comment and they'll answer it for you. If not, we will try to, and maybe even make another video. So thank you for watching.